Morning, Roger. Roger Waters, our leader, bass player, and
how you doing,
at the
Roger?
moment.
Do you want to join us, or?
He's working out yet. I'll think about that.
Okay. He's here. Yeah. Okay. How did you get the name Pink Floyd? No. I have to do this, I'm sorry.
Well, we refuse to answer that question.
We went through a very, very big scene yesterday with another interviewer who wanted to know how we got our name, and we refused to tell her as well.
We're not going to tell
It's
you.
not interesting.
It's boring.
It's very boring.
I mean, the story itself is boring, and the idea of telling you the story is so boring that I could well fall asleep.
I was saying to you that all interviewers ask the same questions.
That was the question.
Exactly what I meant.
Yeah, but I'm getting into more deeper questions after this.
Right,
Well,
that's fine.
that's
So
fine.
move on. I mean, you're entitled to ask all these questions.
But if you
we're
really
entitled
want to find
refuse to
out-
answer them.
Alright, if you don't want to answer them, just don't
Yeah,
answer
Right.
them.
Well, we refuse to answer that one on the
Because
grounds
on the
it's
grounds that
incredibly boring.
once you know, you won't put it in anyway.
Right, and it's so boring.
You won't say how we got it.
Alright,
Because
how about Umaguma? That's boring too?
No, that's not too bad. Actually, not many people have asked us that one.
Alright, how did you get
It's
the
a
name?
Cambridge expression for fuck.
Cambridge expression for fuck?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So, although they don't know. Oh, did I see that?
Ah, very interesting. Wait.
Hello, it says rock and classical go together like oil and water.
Oh yeah.
Quite so offensive. John,
Tell me about your instruments got stolen on the last tour.
yes. Did he explain about Omaguma?
Yes, he explained about Umaguma.
Good. We were in New Orleans, and someone had been, apparently, we later found out, driving our truck around. And someone took away our whole truck in a fit of pique, and with everything inside it. And so we rushed off to the police, who could have shown, I mean, we're just not interested, of course.
That's the usual.
And then we were staying at this very smart hotel called the Royal Orleans in New Orleans, and with very nice young staff, and they all started saying, oh well, my dad's the sheriff, or I know someone in the FBI or something, and this really groovy FBI geezer turned up, and really, the whole thing changed immediately. There was some air of urgency about it, and we also put out on the radio and TV, what had happened, and there was a reward and things. And like about 9 hours later, they found the truck dumped, and only 3 guitars missing.
That's all?
That's all.
Oh.
It was the most.
Just a goof that's scared like.
I think they got scared off, yeah, because.
Rolling Stone said $45,000 worth of equipment was stolen.
Just hotel also.
What, they had stuff knocked off?
Oh yeah, because they
These are the breaks.
at Central Park they were playing, and they said something about don't mind if our sound isn't loud. Our equipment was stolen.
Yes, what's next on you? Oh, another interesting question. When did the group get together? You don't have to answer.
Well, about 6.5 years ago.
6.5 years.
Yes.
We met as students. And that was how we met.
Right. Let me see. Architect. Yes. Okay, now we'll ask Roger one. You don't mind, Roger? Oh, let me see. Why did Sid Barrett leave the group?
You went mad.
He went mad? Do you think anyone else in the group is going to go mad?
Oh, I suppose it is.
Do I think what?
Do you think anyone else in the group's going to go mad?
Good one. Very good one.
No, I don't.
Oh, thank you. How would you characterize your music in your own terms? Because it's hard to classify, your type of music,
I wouldn't.
You would. But if you would, what would you say it's close to?
I wouldn't classify it at all.
Okay. I'll get to better ones, don't
It's
worry.
all right. I mean, you're quite entitled to ask them, as I say. There are various questions that might be entitled freak-out questions.
Yes.
And one is, how did you get your name? And the other is, how would you describe your music?
Okay.
But I'm just giving you some insight into...
There are some others.
Yes, there are others, but those two are probably the corkers of facts. But you can have a look at your questions.
What are your individual backgrounds in music before you got together as a group? You know, like how did you get started playing drums?
I was going to say upper class for me and middle class for the others, but our backgrounds in music could be described as sparse, with the exception of Richard Wright, who underwent a certain amount of training. But my musical background prior to Pink Floyd could be described as sparse. I did have some violin lessons for a period of some weeks from a woman called Mrs. Tchaikovsky, but I don't think they've made a big impact on my approach to the drums.
Could you tell me like some of your, favorite groups? Like,
I'm afraid I couldn't do that because I'm not sure anymore who my favourite groups are, because they change all the time. You know, I mean, every now and then there's an album that comes out, and I think, what a gas.
Right. Could you tell me, like, do you ever like sit around and listen to your own music? Like, you know, you never do? Really?
The thing is, there's such a constant outpouring of music all the time. I mean, it's being churned out by classical rock musicians, concerts, records, all the time. And in any given time sequence, there's good stuff coming out which you dig. And to stop the clock and say, this is what I like, it is very dangerous, you know,
Right.
because...
You wouldn't sit here listening to your own music just like,
No,
put on...
definitely not. Definitely not. Definitely.
What's the reason for it?
Nick. When did you like most to know
New York University, 40 East 7th Street. 40 East 7th. Don Cirillo, who's got a small moustache, and John Riley, who wears glasses.
John Riley.
Give him the microphone. Excuse me.
Okay. What do you think? What do you think about the emphasis on drugs today?
I think it's time to ask it.
What do you all think about drugs?
Nick. I was here before.
Oh. No violence.
You'll tell.
It's my turn.
No, it's just
I had it before, Richard.
No, you
The
didn't
artist
have
I
it
gave
before, Richard.
I gave it to you. You did. Right. But somehow you managed to get it off Dave. Dave was giving it to me. Spirited away to an emergency or something. Yeah? Which is obviously incredibly interesting. Anyway. You see that thing? Steve coming in and saying, I need Dave urgently now. And Dave shot out. And then came a short while later.
Oh, that's good.
Anyway, emphasis on drugs. Bad.
Bad?
Mm.
You think they're all bad?
No.
I think it's wrong.
Well, it depends on your head, and it depends on how much you smoke and why you smoke.
Yeah? Like, I guess you do, like, what would be your reason?
What?
What's your reason for it if you do?
If I do
Yeah,
smoke?
if you do. You don't have to say yes or no.
Well, I don't. My reasons for smoking are not so I can play better music, or I can write better music, or generally believe that I'm getting things together. But no, there's a lot of people, especially I think, everywhere, that believe that in drugs is the kind of culture, and somehow it fulfills their life or whatever, and that's bad.
How do you think about people singing music like somebody saying, Pink Floyd, or like a really heavy underground group, but you have to see them when you're stoned or something? How do you think, it's like bullshit, but how do you think, audiences feel like when they're stoned and, like they see you and,
I don't think, I think that's rubbish. That you need to be stoned to see us or anybody else.
How did you get to do the score of the movie More in Zabriskie Point?
How did we get to, they came and asked us to do it?
Right, because a lot of people might relate your music to the movie More, and it was all about drugs and things like that. They ask, why did you do the soundtrack and not another group like, let's say, someone else,
Well, we did it because he wanted us, R.A. Schroeder wanted us to use us.
Right.
We didn't do it because it was about drugs. In fact, it said good things about drugs, anyway, and it said the right things.
Right.
I'm sure if it was saying the wrong things about drugs, we wouldn't have done it.
Right.
I know we would have.
Could you tell me, how is it like a life of a rock star? Is it boring or hard or what?
What?
No. Life of a rock musician,
It's very better than working for a living.
It is?
Yeah.
Boring or it's hard or
Sometimes boring, sometimes very hard.
But it's all, it all feels worthwhile, and it's all, the results and the whole sense of what you're doing. You're creating something that you find worthwhile, which is more than can be said for 85% of people working today. However much other people might despise what you do.
To me, it seems like a fantastic way to make
it is. It's incredible.
Best.
Absolutely amazing.
What do you think about, how recording engineers work? Do you think theirs is a good job?
Recording engineers slightly less, probably almost the same, but not quite, because they're not quite so personally involved. And they work incredibly hard. Unbelievably hard, because an album for us is our great achievement for that moment and that album. But the moment we've done that and the engineer's done it with us, he's starting another one, like that night. And so
he's also working on maybe more than one at the same time.
But it's a special skill, and it's very useful. It depends how much work they're doing. Some engineers are literally button pushers, while producers, particularly with a new breed of producer, the ones that really control the bands that they produce, and do the mixing sessions without any help or advice from the group. Obviously there's a difference in the amount they do.
That's what I'm going to be, I think.
That's what you want to be?
Yeah. It's a nice job.
It's a nice job if you want to be stuck in a airless building for about 20 hours a day.
20 hours a day?
Yeah, they work very, very hard. I
couldn't do it.
No,
couldn't take working in that kind of atmosphere. You just never see any daylight or anything.
Yeah, but sometimes you get good assignments like Eddie Kramer, like he did Woodstock and he does live albums like for Mail and everything.
Once a year. Once a year. Forget the idea of on location if you're going to be an engineer. Generally, most of it is in the studios, and most of it is hard work. Because you have to concentrate much harder than most of the other people. Because once you've set up the sound, you're still balancing.
Right. What did you think of Woodstock and all that? Did you see the movie or go there?
I like the movie.
Yeah. Would you like to have been there? Playing, you know.
Don't know.
Yeah,
Don't know.
I would.
Yeah.
I would have liked to.
Take a picture. What else do I have? How did you get the idea for Atomic Heart Mother?
Atom Heart Mother came from a newspaper.
You mean the idea of the title or the music?
No, the idea of the music.
Just through rehearsing, we built up this piece.
You all had a part to do in it, like you each contributed.
Yeah. We got together and created it, and then later on we added brass.
Did you know at the start that you wanted brass or a chorus?
Not at the beginning, no. Not at the very beginning.
Do you think when you did it at the Fillmore on Sunday, it came off well? Do you think the audience appreciated it, or?
I think they did. Yeah. Did you?
Yeah, from the general view that I saw of the audience, they liked it. They didn't expect you to do it.
No.
I wanted you to do Interstellar Overdrive for an encore again. That's what everybody wanted. There was more, you know, because you did it good when I saw it last time.
After that piece, see, I mean, we just couldn't go on and do another number. For us, it would have been a big bring down, and then after you built it up, that kind of ending to do encore in the drag.
Feedback. What about experimenting with new sounds like you? I think you're the first group to use quadratic sound in 4-channel stereo in an audience thing, you know, and it really sounded great, and you get really great effects, you know. David gets good effects with his guitar, and you get good effects with your organ, and you get footsteps and everything. How do you feel about these effects and the reactions to them?
How do you feel, Nick?
What? I didn't do the question.
Well, I mean, I like them, or we wouldn't do them. Again, it hasn't been developed to its fullest possible extent yet.
Right.
We're still just learning and trying things.
How about the difference in popularity between England and here? You know, how about your tours? Are they coming off well since Umaguma came out, you know?
Tours in America, yeah. The last one was very good. This one we don't know yet. We've only done 2 shows.
I was reading somewhere that a guy thought that the first album, the English version, was much better than the American version, and he's joking, and he thinks that it's done by LA musicians, the first American album, you know, that you did, the first Pink Floyd, you know.
You thought what?
He thought that LA musicians did it, and that he thought that the English version was better.
Well, it's exactly all our material, but it's been, like the American version, they took off about 3 numbers, I believe, and stuck on our single, which was the Emily Play. They swapped it about. It is worse. I mean, the English version is how we wanted it to be. And the record company at the time changed it without our permission. Sure, it isn't as good. But it's not different musicians. They never did that.
Well, what are you being a pig about this for, anyway? How did you like the New York Philharmonic and Leonard Bernstein when you saw him? Why did you go see him, and, you know, like, what did you think of them?
He came to our concert. And, I guess we hope that one day we'll be able to do something with him. You know. And, I really love Leonard Bernstein, anyway. You know, I think he's incredible person, and he does incredible things with music and with musicians. I just wanted to see him work.
Right. Let me see. What do you think about this country? You know, like in England they have problems, but like here, you know, we have Spiro Agnew, and, you know, there's talk about revolution and all this. So how do you feel about the politics and it's affecting music? Because, like, you know, like places like the Fillmore in Westchester and you know, these people didn't have money, and you know, like because of the politics, people thought that they were exploiting, you know, being exploited, and they wanted to go in festivals for free, and you know.
Well, there's that feeling in Europe as well, especially in France. Not so much in England, actually. But just politics over here. I mean, it's much easier in England to live and do whatever you want without the establishment, you know, getting in your way, if you like. So it's a different situation over there. So in fact, English rock groups aren't so politically active as they are here, I guess.
What do you feel, Nick?
What was the question?
Politics. About politics and like Spirit Agnew being the schmuck that he is.
Well, I haven't heard exactly what Spiro Agnew said, but I mean, obviously.
Now then?
Well, he said something. I know he said something about rock music is involved in drugs. I mean, you know, it's probably. Well, anyway, whatever. It hardly matters really.
In England,
It's just that.
if we had someone like that, I think in England you'd laugh at him.
That's what they do here.
Yeah, but they take him very seriously as well. You know, they get very uptight about him.
Yeah, right, but a lot of people laugh at him too. You know, because he's...
Well, anyway, he wouldn't be, you know...
I don't think he'd exist in England.
He wouldn't exist
in
in
the same way.
England. I mean Enoch Powell's probably the nearest thing we've got to.
Yeah, Enoch Powell, who's considered a complete freak. I mean, really.
Complete fool.
And I mean that he does have a minority sort of group behind him, but he's considered as pretty nearly mad. And I mean, he's much more. He's not as stupid as Spiro Agnew, you know.
No, he's very intelligent.
He's pretty bright, so he's pretty clever, but he's still a complete, you know, joke really. But Spiro Agnew isn't. Unfortunately, isn't. He's, you know, he represents a large part of the American people who feel that they've missed out on all this, you know, all the new deals and so on. And I mean, you can't move backwards. The human race doesn't move backwards. So there's obviously going to be a lot of more unpleasantness and general
I'm saying it's very different here. As an American living in this country now and being brought up in America, I guess I'd be, you know, feeling for revolution, etc., etc. Just like a lot of young people are over here.
I mean, America is very frightening. I mean, like, I get pretty alarmed at the prospect of coming over to do tours here and so on. I mean, the whole scene, the whole thing, from the incredible quantities of violence, you know, and the attitude of people is frequently just amazing. You know, people who shout and scream and drivers and the whole thing. It's really extraordinary.
Do you think with all these power things going on between countries that the world's going to last much longer?
Oh, that's
It's impossible.
and that's an impossible answer.
I mean, you
But
have to
all you
believe
can
it is.
say,
You have to believe it is. Otherwise, you give up now, and you certainly don't bother going
I do
around
believe
playing rock music.
Possibly, you know, there's a feeling going around amongst people like ourselves will have an influence on how the world is managed in the future. Because it's got to be, because, you know, we're going to be the people, not necessarily in power, but I mean, it seems to me there's a lot of hope.
Right. What are the group's plans for the future, you know, like on the next tour with other albums? You know, just, are you gonna go on experimenting with sound, or, you know, like, doing things, you know, like space songs, like Astronomy Down, you're just gonna, you know...
In terms of music, I don't know what we're going to do. But, I mean, we've got a lot of things to do right up till probably next summer. We're doing ballet, we're doing new album.
You're doing a ballet? When's this?
In Paris. I've been asked to write a score for a 40-minute ballet.
What do you feel about this change? The group's been doing, heavy type of rock music with, sound effect type things. And what is your feeling, with classical music now and ballets and orchestras getting into the group now?
We won't necessarily use an orchestra. I mean, the orchestra was an experiment, and I've no doubt, I'm sure we'll do something again with an orchestra, and this will go down, as an experiment, and we'll relate to it in future things. But I don't think we're now committed to a course of action using an orchestra for all our future work, or our future work over the next months. In fact, I think probably and this is a sort of complete surmise, it's not a plan that we've got, but I suspect that we'll retreat from an orchestra now and go back and find out more about what the orchestra proved that we could do, what we lost with an orchestra. We'll try and recapture between the four of us again, that sort of thing. Because obviously when you take on extra musicians and so on, you lose a certain mobility within what you can do. And I think that we might go back and look for some of that. But then again, after we've done that, we might go and try and have another go with an orchestra, or we might. But yeah, it's difficult to say. But I'm just saying it's not, it's not a sort of cut and dried thing of staying with an orchestra now.
Any of you want?
Yeah, I'll take some of that.
Should I ask the phone?
American Grass.
What?
He said you didn't want it.
Did I?
Yeah. What do you think?
Hi, Mommy.
What do you think of American Grass? Like, is it good? Or is it worse? Like in England, where did they get it from? The Middle East? They shut it off if you want.
Yeah, don't really want to talk about drugs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bore to read about drugs and articles. But I mean, I think American Grass is very nice.
Yeah?
Some of it.
It comes from Mexico and fool around, It's like, come see us sometimes, it's real pretty beat. So I'll maybe ask you a question.
Like, what is the theme behind some of your songs, like in Astronomy, Domini, for instance? It's really hard to decipher the words, You're on stage, and what's it about? It's about planets, or what,
Yeah, I mean, it's science fiction, cosmic, I do like.
What are some of the words
It's a good
to
song
it?
anyway, so
Like, what are some of the words to the song? Like, how do
It's a fantasy. I mean, it's not
it's a fantasy, yeah. Lime and limpid green, a second scene, the fight between the blue you once see. I mean, it's
patterns of words.
it's a very
it's
typical
not,
Sid
it doesn't
Barrett
have a
song.
meaning or a story.
It's imagery, The words create images in your mind.
Honest. Like, how long does the group have to, like, really practice on, like, before a show or something? Like, how many hours?
Well, we don't practice very much. I mean,
a whole day probably to set up.
That's it? I mean,
Occasionally.
the old material, you completely haven't played it for a couple of weeks or days?
some of the things we've been playing for 2 years.
Yeah, right.
So there's no problem. The other things, as long as we know all we have to practice, all we have to know is the basic structure of the piece, how long whether there's a chorus after a verse or decide the sort of way we're going to do it. And then it's up to us to play it, to the audience, which is not a matter of rehearsal.
Right. Like, how long does it, like, take? Let's say you just write a song just to get it together, like Interstellar Overdrive or something like that.
As the next thing. But I mean, Interstellar Overdrive was written one day and performed the next.
Really?
It was sometimes we would learn songs on stage at Paris Gardens, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean, right at the beginning we didn't rehearse that. We just went on stage.
We rehearsed, but we didn't rehearse numbers, we just played.
We just played. In fact, if you like, we were jamming at that point.
Yeah.
Because we went on stage not knowing what we were going to do.
And someone would
And just play.
start a piece with an idea, like it might be a...
But, like, you might not come in at the same time, like, you'll go... Like, you use your own judgment.
Or someone starts and you'll come in when you've sussed it out. That was the usual way.
A lot of improvising.
How our top gauge started, just one geezer went up the microphone and went boom, 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 and everyone picked up on it and put the other things in it, and then the drums picked up, and then people's, you know, I mean, that was more or less it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And Interstellar, Sid played the theme, right, once through. We heard it, came in, very, you know, it's very simple, and then that was it. It just went on from there.
Is it over?
Yeah. What about Careful with That Axe, Eugene? What's the theme behind that besides like murder?
What's the theme?
Like Roger said on stage, this is a song about murder.
No, that's the title about murder.
Possibly it's the title about murder, and I mean, like,
It's a very frantic piece in some ways.
it's the no ending piece, if you like. I mean, it starts from nothing and ends at nothing, and it goes through a lot of sort of maybe violence
What about when
in the middle.
What about when it builds up in the middle
With that axe.
and then he screams?
It's not a huge message to the world, I think, you know, about murder or
Yeah,
violence.
the song, the lyrics, the songs,
the title.
the meaning of songs
I mean,
is totally...
We often
it's
pick
very-
titles, you know, which have nothing really to do with the songs, but just like
But
our
just
name.
the ways of
It's
marking
just a way of marking it and saying, you know, putting it into category.
Just
And
that
we could
refer to
call all our songs number 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. It's just that words are interesting, and they create, you know, like Careful with That Axe is a nice sort of image. That's all it is.
What are like some of the hassles like a rock group like yourself undergoes on tour and, you know, doing things?
equipment hassle.
Equipment hassles, flying hassles, getting it places,
Boredom hassles.
boredom when you're not working.
I mean, nothing too, you know, every now and then there's amazing disaster and everyone rushes back to speak down.
There's probably a new disaster that's happening because Steve rushed in.
You try and, I mean, things tend to run a bit smoother than they used to because there's more money. I mean, one of the best ways of sorting out hassles of all time is to spend money. You know, like, if you can afford to, I mean, if you, I don't know, but I mean, the real hassles come when you're 100 miles from the gig and your van's broken down and you've got $8, you know. Whereas if the gig you're going to do is worth enough money and you've got some money, and so you can rent another van and get an alternative flight, or, you know, it's all
money to people
Yeah.
to get it together for you.
right.
And buy movie cameras.
And buy movie cameras.
I don't know. I don't know if I should ask, but like, how much do you make like at a film or something like that?
I don't know what we
We
make.
don't know, we haven't been told.
We don't, if it's
I mean,
any,
you're
we
But
don't
in
make
fact,
money.
all we can say is that we lost money on the film.
you lost money.
Because
Ostensibly.
yeah, in theory.
Because the
The
choir and
choir
brass
musicians
cost
us
plenty.
$5,000.
5,000 at the
one day.
of most musicians, you said? I mean, the whole group.
Yeah,
The whole lot cost
the choir and the brass.
$5,000.
Really?
And rehearsing
Plus the rehearsal,
and
you see.
all that sort of stuff.
Like, how much would it?
Our
Yeah.
expenses of living in New York for a week, plus blah blah blah.
I mean, you lost at the end.
But
So
no,
like,
we don't lose.
yeah,
because-
you have a great time. Like,
well, it all
We don't
depends
in
on
the end
sell
because
records, isn't
you sell records, you know.
I mean, the whole economy of the thing is a bit more complicated than how much you get for a gig and
Right.
when you make money or not. That's really what I'm saying.
like how much would a group like who comes here once every 10 years, like the Stones, like how they make plenty, don't they?
Yeah, they do. But once,
Especially when tickets are as high as $750, $850, and all that.
I mean, we could make money on live gigs, but it's not really.
I guess you're not out for money, which is I guess
Well,
very.
We are
very good.
out for money, really, and I don't think it, you know.
Oh, I know, but I mean-
paint us as people who.
I mean, did you go into rock business to get rich? Like, no, I don't think so.
Oh, I'll stay at the beginning, certainly. When
Really?
we started in England 3 years ago, we all wanted to be pop stars.
Oh, you missed it?
I missed out on all the fun.
Who's that?
David.
Where was he all
What
this time?
happens like in a time like this when one guy gets in on the fun, when you're not doing anything and the others are just interviewing people without having a go on?
Well, I don't think
What's David been doing?
nothing. He's not getting around the fun.
Right, that's right. What do you think of groupies? You get a lot, I guess.
Some nice groupies. What's bad groupies? And on the whole, they're bad.
Really? How about on this tour this last week? Have you been pretty successful? Maybe you're married, I should say.
I haven't met a single groupie on this tour, and I don't intend to.
That's the best thing.
It's not my scene anymore.
I mean, it used to be a lot of fun. Like now, you get serious.
I guess the first time coming to America and seeing all these groupies was a huge buzz, because it was like, you know, in England it wasn't like that. In England,
And the morals were different, like.
it was like 1967 or maybe 8. There was, well, I felt on the West Coast, the whole, the groupie thing was good in many ways.
Right.
But now, I mean, well, in those days, somehow I felt there was a lot of friendship and a lot of things going on between groups and groupies, etc., which was good. Whereas now it's completely different.
Yeah.
Yes,
Rich, do you have anything to ask yourself that would be of special interest to the article?
Oh, he said that to Alvin Lindsay.
Anything I'd like you to ask us?
Ask yourself anything at all.
Oh. Well, I haven't got anything to ask myself.
How am I feeling today?
I'm feeling alright.
Have no more questions, Aaron?
No, I have. I gotta make this a long interview, else it'll take up, 1 second.
Shut it off, Joe.
Nick, do you have anything to ask yourself?
Tell me, Nick. No, I have nothing to ask myself. Or nothing I wish to ask myself now. Yeah.
Okay.
A couple of questions.
This is England and France and all these.